Welcome to CCTV Channel 17 live at 525, the Preservation Burlington show. Preservation Burlington is a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to preserve and protect the historic architecture and livability of Burlington through education and advocacy. We can talk about stuff that's come up recently on our website, and we can defend preservation a little bit later maybe. Sure. But I think we have a great show tonight. I know that kind of the season, it's not winding down, but you know, October's creeping up on us. We have our cemetery tours to do and stuff, hence the title up there earlier. Would you like to introduce our guest, who's not a new guest, he's been here before.
Sure. Today we have Jason Stuffle from the Old East End, cemetery aficionado extraordinaire, right? So you are a Burlington resident, an Old East End resident, and a cemetery buff, and the keeper, if you will, of Greenmount Cemetery in terms of its history.
And you guys have the best sticker. I think I have like 5 of them now. I just keep collecting them, making them magnets.
Is it Old East End stickers?
Yeah.
Old East End stickers we have.
It's such a good looking sticker.
Okay, now I have FOMO. Now I really have.
I'll sell you one of mine.
Let's talk about what we're here to talk about. Let's talk to Jason.
Yeah, just because we have we wound anything up? You know, we had the art hop. That was pretty good.
We had some tours. We've got Carolyn Bates doing her Burlington Murals speech or talk on October 5th, I believe. Yep. Could be wrong. Check the website.
Yeah, it changes a lot.
Right. It's at the Fletcher Free. I can't speak today. The Fletcher Free Library. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper, right? That was good. Yes. And then some of our fall programs, including a tour at Greenmount Cemetery on October 6th, which you're going to lead, right?
That is correct. I will
Thank you.
be leading I believe this is the 3rd year that we've done the tour.
Yeah. As a team, but you really do all the heavy lifting.
Literally. Sometimes literally.
So tell us a little bit about the Old East End gang group and the sticker and how you guys organized.
Yep. So we formed about a little over 6 years ago, and it came out of a AARP safety walk for people walking and biking in the neighborhood, and originally started to try and deal with some of the traffic on Patchen Road and where it turns into Grove Street and goes to Barrett at the bridge.
Yep.
And from there, we kind of were able to get some grants, do some projects, and from there we grew and turned more into a community neighborhood group. Mm-hmm. And we started doing a lot more activities with fixing up Schmanska Park, throwing a number of events to get to know our neighbors. We have a lot of college students in the fall, so we like to do something in the fall and have a mixer down at the barn where everyone can meet their neighbors. Cool. And then we just do a lot with the history of the neighborhood, which is Old East End has so much history, constantly still learning from that.
Burlington. It's the first part of Burlington. Burlington first.
That's correct. People associate maybe the downtown with the first part of Burlington, but really it was associated with Winooski and Ira Allen, and Ethan Allen with their mill on the Winooski side. And so, at first people were traveling by water, and so they would come up the Winooski River to get there. And there wasn't really a downtown or any of those streets. Colchester Ave was just like a footpath,
right?
Not the road it is today.
So tell us exactly, for folks who may not exactly know, what is considered the Old East End? What is sort of the geographic boundary?
Yep. Yeah. I don't know if we have the photo of that, but essentially it's everything east of East Ave.
Okay.
So essentially starting at East Ave and going all the way down the hill to the river and out to the edge of, Burlington there. Yep. So on the upper left there, you can see kind of from the bridge going up to basically what's Hospital Hill, which was previously called Catlin Hill. And that's from Moses and Lucinda Catlin, who ran a lot of the mill works down on the river. Okay. And so there's an interesting story that his wife wanted the best view. Yep. And so it was just trees up there, and he climbed up a really tall pine tree and looked at the view and said, "This is a good spot." And
that was the first hill section.
Yep. And people, our local Engine 3, is on the hill since 1896. So people more associate the hill section with the southern part, but it is.
But that's the first hill section.
Yep. Yeah. And so it's that's kind of where, from the Hospital Hill, Catlin Hill down to the river, is what encompasses the old East End.
Right. Yeah, I know you've teamed up with Parks and Rec a lot, and you've done some of those winterludes at the Szymanski with the barn there and everything.
Yep. Yeah. So Szymanska Park has it was originally a farm, and when Frank Szymanska died in, I believe, 1941, his wife then donated the majority of their land to become a park. And that is what is present-day Szymanska Park. And a lot of people, when you drive down the road, you see the little playground, but you don't realize it continues up the hill, and there's an old, really nice barn there that our group has been involved with fixing up so that we can have events in there and do things there. And so it's a great community space. Get a lot of wildlife. We spotted a bald eagle flying through just a number of days ago. And it's nice because it abuts to Centennial Woods.
Right.
And so the cemetery, Szymanska Park, and Centennial Woods altogether is something like 100 acres of a nice preserve where there isn't, much going on. And so there's a lot of animals and things. I've been scared by deer in the cemetery and among other things. And so,
right, you probably scared them too.
So speaking of the cemetery, tell us about it, how you discovered it, how you came to love it, and how you're going to lead people through it on October 6th.
Yep. So I live literally like right across the street from the cemetery, and when the leaves are down, I can directly see the Ethan Allen Monument. So. Since I've lived there, which has been almost 20 years now, I've always had an interest in the cemetery because I'd cross across the street and you'd walk through there to get into Centennial Woods or to shortcut down to the park. And so I would, for years, clean up the trash and do things to help maintain it. And so from that, I would learn a lot of the history. But it was really the onset of COVID that kind of sparked a second interest in it, that people were looking for safe outdoor spaces that they could be at. And here, this is a great picture of it in the wintertime. And I love snowshoeing through there.
So serene.
And you can go tracking in there. It's interesting to see all the animal tracks and everything else. And so people really started using this space because they were looking for somewhere to be. And I would joke that I saw maybe 10 people in a whole year, a while back. And then as COVID hit, there I'd see 15, 20 people in a single day over there. And so that kind of spurred myself and then some other community members to really make it even nicer. And the first thing that came to mind was there was all these old stones and you couldn't even read what the inscriptions were, who they were for. And so I got a lesson from someone on how to clean a gravestone. And, and this is one that I actually found that was buried. I can talk about that momentarily. But I started cleaning the stones and essentially cleaned all of the stones in what's considered the old section of Greenmount Cemetery, which is a much, much smaller than what the full cemetery is today.
Where is that in the cemetery? When you come in that drive?
So if you come in the driveway, that did not actually used to be the entrance. The entrance used to be downhill about another 150 feet, and you can kind of see where the old road that came in the center went. But it starts kind of at that road, and you go back and cut behind Ethan Allen just a little bit. Go past Ethan Allen, not even all the way to the far end, and back out to the front. So it was really, that very, very small section, and you can kind of see the roads are now, grass paths where it was. But there's approximately like 200 or so stones in that area, and so cleaning those up was very, very fun. You couldn't read the inscription, and then I was saying sometimes when you clean a stone, even after you're done, the inscription's very hard to read, but as you're cleaning it, some dirt or other things in its wet get into what's written there, and so I made sure to transcribe what all of the stones actually say. Some of them being old stones that, this is a good example right here. This is Alexander Catlin Jr. was drowned in Lake Champlain in 1800. And,
by somebody, or he just drowned?
Well, he was part of the operations where they were taking timber north on the lake up to Quebec. And it was rough going, and he fell off of the boat. And they didn't find him for several weeks, and he washed up in Shelburne area, and a lady walking along the lake found him. But it was no easy task to try and move lumber. And so, right where Szymanska Park.
Tough industry.
It's an interesting history of the Szymanska Park area. They call it a rolling hill, where they would cut down the trees and they could roll them down the hill to save the labor to get them to the water, and then take them out the river. And so, you know, it's interesting. Yep. And so this is showing Schmanska Park when it was actually still being used as a farm. And that's Grove Street there. And they're actually putting in a nice bridge there. There's still a bridge there, but it doesn't look as nice as
this one?
This one, yeah. They did not replace it with...
Is that the old barn that you were
Yep,
talking
that's
about?
the barn. That's the barn that's still there.
That's great.
And that likely dates back to when the Edgecombs owned the land.
Okay.
And that's a family that owned almost all of the land in the area, including what is now Centennial Field, a lot of Centennial Woods, a good portion of the cemetery.
Okay.
And over time that got split up.
All in that one family.
Yep. And so there's a good amount of, so Edgecombe,
there they are.
Yep, so they're buried there.
Clean that one?
We have cleaned that one. That one was very unreadable too as well. And it's pretty interesting. There's a whole bunch of that family, multiple generations buried there, the Sibleys and Chase family, and so it's the original name from the family was Chase, and that's how you ended up with Chase Street.
Yeah. So it's funny.
So this is the house on Chase Street, the original kind of like nice house, and this is very interesting that the family that lives there, I believe it's the 7th or 8th continuous generation of the family living there, and
currently.
So the house has never been into another family since it was built. Probably approximately the 1850s. They don't know for sure.
Yep.
But as cool as the stereo view on the right, I found, and I gifted it to my friend on his retirement when he was retired, and he still lives there. And it's, you know, of his house. And so they're from like about the 1890s.
Oh, that's
that photo on the right.
Find.
Yeah, that's really great. That's great. You know what's interesting about your work in the cemetery and living there, obviously, you it's like that wormhole. But once you're cleaning those headstones and you're seeing those names and you relate it to the street, and then so now just because you've done that work in the cemetery, you've gotten dragged into the entire history and these family stories of the entire area.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it does read like a street map of Burlington, and you know, you'll see there's Hickok, Buell, Willard, Barrett, all of those. And it's I did work with a group that came to volunteer and clean stones, and they've done that for a few years.
Okay.
And you know, there's people involved with getting the College Street Congregational Church started.
Okay.
And it's a Hickok and a Buell, and a sister and brother married a other sister and brother. And then they also married into the Willards.
Okay.
And so if you know downtown, it's Hickok, Buell, and Willard Street are all
that
right
whole
next
area.
to each other. So it's really interesting when you can kind of start to put those pieces together with the name, why those streets are named that.
The people and where those streets are.
It's really, really great to connect those dots to names, to actual living, well, they're dead now, but to people,
real stories.
Actual people and stories. Yeah, tell us some of the other, like, you know, really interesting stories that maybe people don't know but should, like, you know, your favorite gravestones or personalities who are in there or things that you found.
Yeah, I mean, there's some very obvious ones. Ethan Allen, Ira Allen.
Yeah.
Ira Allen, the one you're thinking of, is not actually buried there, but there is an Ira Allen buried there that's not Ethan's brother, which is pretty interesting. So people get confused. They say, is Ira Allen buried here? And you have to be like, yes, but not the one you think. But it's also the Fletcher Monument there is a very interesting one. And so it's a big, huge monument, but next to it is a little tiny stone for their son that died. And there was no good health care, and they lost multiple children. And then, of course, Mary Fletcher was sickly for most of her life. And it was, you know, kind of that losing kids and not having good health care that drove them to then build a hospital up on the hill. I think also there's so this is an interesting one here. We're seeing, this is a stone I recovered. There's some neighbors that have lived in a neighborhood for like 50 years and told me that there was some stones down off of, you know, Greenmount Cemetery, what you would think of the regular area, almost right where the pickleball courts are in Schmanska Park, so way down over.
Hill, like down the
and
hill.
so it was kind of like urban legend. Hey, they're down there, and I looked and I looked and I never really found them. I was like, I don't know, I can't really see them. And I went out. It was actually on November 1st, which is All Souls Day, and that made me remember that. But I just spotted a little bit of white sticking out from underneath a massive tree. And looked, and sure enough, it was a really big tree, I don't know, that big around.
Oh, wow.
You know, multiple feet around, had fallen down and fallen across all of the stones. And so there's Charles Whittle, who was a Civil War vet in New York, is buried there along with 5 of his kids, at least. And so I recovered all those stones and put them back up. And so I did a little research. Yeah, so here you can see,
Okay.
and that's even after we rolled the big tree off of it, and you can
Yeah,
a
you can
bunch of
see why you wouldn't
it-
see
did
it.
it
It's
break?
buried.
Yeah, it was under dirt and everything.
Mud,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so it had been a long time since that had been there, but it was luckily, due to my neighbors, we found that. And so it's an interesting story is that they wanted to expand Greenmount Cemetery, and they got some of the Edgecombe land. We're expanding down the hill, and you can see where they graded the road down through the woods. It's still kind of apparent there as you go down through. And basically Lakeview Cemetery started around that same time, and everyone shifted to Lakeview, and they abandoned really doing the expansion at Greenmount. Even though it is still part of the cemetery, they stopped really burying
Using
people there.
it.
So it's really only like the one burial that I know of that I can find record of. It's down the hill there.
Okay.
And then it's
There's
interesting.
room for more.
Oh yeah, it's not the best. It's a pretty steep hill there. So you go down the steep hill and then it flattens out at the bottom, and that's where they're aiming to put people. I
I
think.
think I'm going to get buried there.
Good luck.
I'll
I'll come down and do the little
Yeah, that's the one unfortunate thing. There's no more plots available there. You can't buy them, but there are still somewhat active burials for people. And it's interesting is that there's the Sparhawk family, and they had a sanitarium in Burlington. And it was, I think, Edwin Sparhawk first was a doctor. Then his son Sam was a doctor. Sam Jr. was a doctor. Then there was Sam the third, and then his son was just recently buried in the cemetery this summer.
Oh, wow.
And so, they have a family plot there with plenty of room. And, it goes back to like the 1870s
Wow.
or something like that. And so, you do see occasionally a burial here or there. There's not too many. But I actually did attend one very recently, which is actually pretty cool, is that there's a UVM medical grave for people who have donated their bodies to science. And so people have donated their bodies to
There you
research
go.
at UVM for a long time.
Yep.
And people do have the option then to take the cremated remains and bury them where they want to, but they also offer the option that they'll put them in this grave. And so I think it was the third time they had done a burial there. And so they actually opened up the grave, put in a new concrete thing, and there was close to 400 people's remains were all
Wow.
buried.
So that's my in. That's how I can get in.
Yeah, that's how you-
get it. Donate your body to
So
science.
that's what I'll do.
Yep. And so when people ask how many people are buried there, it's a little hard to say because there's not great records. It's not
Yeah.
always public information. If the family doesn't want to say that they
That's
gave
where
their
they
body
are.
to science, so that's where they are. So there's a lot of unnamed people there, but there's a very interesting bench that says something along of the lines like, "You were our best teacher," for the people that donated their bodies to science.
And
So
my
that's-
family could take a Sharpie and write my name on there if they wanted to, right?
Always making it about himself. Is there a catalog of graves that people could see, or is that yet to come?
No, so there is Find a Grave, which you can find some information. Sometimes it's inaccurate, incomplete. Myself, I do have a huge amount of stuff that as I've done work, I've been keeping notes and other things. And, I joke at some point I'm going to have to write a book on the history of Greenmount Cemetery. Got to find a little more time with a young daughter and my job and everything. But
Right.
I
Quit your
definitely
job.
kept
He
all
could
the
do
research.
it. Make it all the school projects from here on out. is
I was gonna
documenting
say,
all of
yeah,
that
have
stuff.
your daughter do it and get some UVM students to do the legwork for you.
Yep.
That's definitely needed, though. I mean, I know they struggle with that already at Lakeview, but to just have a catalog of what's there, who's there, and,
Yep. And so one interesting thing is a number of years ago, I think it was about 4 years ago now, I got involved with Memorial Day. They placed fresh flags for all of the veterans there. And the cemetery office did have a list of about 103, 104, somewhere around there, veterans. And so trying to find all the stones the first time was really kind of difficult.
Challenging, yeah.
And then as I did that, I took notes of it. And then as we were finding them, we found other veterans that were not listed on the list. And it was either obvious from, the stone specifically said they were in the war, but there's a lot of ones that don't say people were in a war. And so that you find out maybe some research when you're looking up the person. Old newspapers around here are great to look up and find. They used to print every detail of everything that went on.
Right.
It's the
So-and-so went
gossip
to
column.
visit.
Right.
Lots of details you would never see people printing today, I don't think.
The obituaries were like a gossip column.
Yep, yeah. And so we were able to then get nice metal markers for all of the veterans. And so every Memorial Day, we have an annual get together where people in the neighborhood, we go, split up the flags, and I have a nice spreadsheet with everything and put
Cool.
fresh flags on all the veterans' graves. So that's some really interesting
That's
stuff
cool.
to look in there. There's Perry Aldrich was a pilot in World War I. So that's an interesting story. There's the Thayer son and father, who were both doctors in the Civil War. And so you can imagine.
Related to Thayer School out on North Ave?
I do not know that offhand. It may or may not be. I have to look into that. It's a good question. But imagine being a doctor during the Civil War. It was probably pretty gruesome.
Oh boy, yeah.
To deal with that,
And you and your child, so
Yep.
you're both at risk. It's
And for the poor victims, too.
Yep. Yeah, and then probably I call it my daughter's favorite one is the George Duncan stone. So right here on the upper left, you see the horse with tack but no rider.
Yeah.
And so he was in the Battle of Gettysburg and was in the cavalry and then killed in battle. And so that's a symbolic of fallen
away.
soldier, the horse.
Horse still
And then of
there.
course to her it looks a little bit like a unicorn because there is a little bit of a bump off the head.
yeah.
So she really likes that. And yeah, so this is just some of the other symbols that you'll find around the cemetery, with Freemasons, the finger pointing up, very similar to Ethan Allen with the gone home. There is a big section there that is Muslim in the one corner there. And they seem to mostly have descended from someone who came here in the 1930s or 40s, and then it looks like almost all of them are related. It's hard to say, but there are people who actively visit those graves and maintain those
wow.
graves. And so you still do see people in there, even though it's the oldest cemetery in Burlington. It's,
still people showing up to honor their family and maintain
And
their.
that's great that it's used and it's enjoyed and loved, and it's great that you love it so much and take care of it so much. So tell us a little bit for the tour on October 6th. Where should people park?
So there is parking in the cemetery if you come in, but it's very limited. But if you're slightly up the road, there's a Centennial field lot that's right there that you can also park in. If you can walk or bike, that's great. There's a bike rack there. I help to get in walking. And then there's also parking at Schmanska Park. And you can walk from Schmanska Park through the park and up into the cemetery.
Okay, both.
There's a sledding hill there.
Shortcut.
Yeah, nice locals shortcut that you can go in.
And you can be rolled down the hill to go back to your car.
Yeah, and then I never really plan a ton to talk about because I can talk about everything. So I love for
You
people to
bounce
ask
around.
questions, and when they ask questions, go into that more. And it's nice. I get a lot of questions I can't answer, and then I have to go and
Do research.
Do a
research
little
that.
more research, that's
And
great.
if I try to give a tour on everything I liked, it'd be 10 hours long.
But it won't be. It'll be an hour,
Yeah,
right?
it's about an
45,
hour.
yep.
And then if the weather is good, I often like to do a stone cleaning afterwards as a little demo if people want to see how to clean a stone. But I pick a much smaller one. So yeah, here's a group of volunteers we had. And it's
nice.
really, and then it's funny, if you look on the right, you see what looks like a bush right there. We actually cut all that down because there was 2 stones underneath there.
No,
And
really?
it had been way overgrown. And yeah, so it's interesting. I think I found probably 30 or more stones.
The sense of discovery.
That stuff has been buried, fallen over, and then covered over. Some have actually sunk straight down because they didn't put a good base underneath it, and just over the years and all the cycles. And so I saw what I thought was a broken off stone, but it was actually the very top of the stone, and it had sunk straight down that much, So that was interesting. We found the one down the hill.
Yep.
And even my daughter, it's the main walking path that people use to cut through the cemetery and then go down to the park. She just noted it was the size of a quarter that looked like a little stone. And when we ended up taking it off, it was a huge, huge stone, from the 1850s. And I must have walked over it like hundreds of times, and I don't know how I didn't see it, but I think the light was shining just right. It kind of highlighted.
Is she catching your enthusiasm? Because it's infectious. I mean, I'm really excited right now just sitting here. So.
Yep. Oh yeah, I've definitely taken her over there to help clean. She loves to help with the flags. That's one of her favorite things to do. She's a real good helper with that. But yeah, we're always over there doing
Right.
something.
And the iconography is just so fun and interesting. And like you mentioned, the Civil War or wherever you're looking at, there's all these, the hand pointing to the sky.
The things that
Everywhere you
denote
look,
the
you
children,
find something,
yeah,
and you
there's
got
so
to try
much.
to figure that out. Yeah, it's a
Yep.
real
Yeah, there's a
sense of
lot
adventure.
to like reading a cemetery.
Yes.
You know, and it's like if you're in the old section, you can see how the stones are much more worn down and they're just single kind of stones. And as you move further back, they become these bigger granite monuments, and the style changes.
Yeah.
There's a couple interesting ones that actually have the stone carver's name on the stone,
Oh, wow.
which is an interesting thing because for the most part,
That
you're
was
like,
unusual.
yeah, who carved this? Where did it come from? How do you know? But probably most of the stones are local. Probably a lot of them are done by the same person.
Yeah.
I can't imagine there were tons of people
Right.
carving stones back then.
One guy on Route 7 that was there forever. That family.
A lot of Barry granite. Yeah.
Jason, thank you. I know we're probably getting close, but I just want to thank you for coming on again.
And thank you for leading the tour again.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So if
fun.
you want to come out and learn about the cemetery, bring your
That's gonna be
questions.
October
6th.
6th. At what time? 10 a.m.?
Yeah, we do 10 a.m., right?
10 a.m.
10 a.m.
Yeah. I know Bob sets it all up. We have our tables there and everything, and we'll probably try to get some cameras from the studio here.
Right.
Maybe follow you around a little bit and get
Yep.
some of this,
Yeah. And then we'll see you at our fall meetup and annual awards on October 16th as well. So
Yep, the Old East End Neighborhood Coalition will have a booth there. So
Can I get my sticker?
Yep, yeah, we'll have some
Yes.
stickers. So I'll bring one specifically for you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Awesome. It
Well,
was
thank you.
Great having you. Great meeting you.
Yep, it was great to be on.
You want to close us out?
Nope.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into CCTV Live at 525 Preservation Burlington. We have a lot of fun doing this. For more information on Burlington history, tours, events, and walking tours, cemetery tours, or to get a marker for your historic house, go to preservationburlington.org, and we'll see you next month. Thanks for tuning in.